and welcome to this week's edition of Wealth After Work, the show bringing you to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is Josiah Grasso. He is the Vice President and Senior Financial Advisor at ASC Financial Group, and Senior Financial Advisor Taylor Munoz. We're so glad you're joining us today. The title of this episode is Mark Your Calendars, Big Birthdays for Retirement Planning. And you're going to want to stay with us because one of the things we find is what overwhelms a lot of people is not knowing what to do when. But don't worry, we've got you covered. We're going to be covering almost 25 years worth of milestone birthdays and what that means for your retirement planning. Josiah, Taylor, this is going to be a really fun conversation. Great to be here with you both.
Yeah. Love being back here. It's one of my favorite days of the week.
Yes.
If we're talking about birthdays, could we say this segment takes the cake?
Like it. Like I was waiting for that. That's awesome. Very cool. But in all seriousness, you know, aging often doesn't have the best connotation. It can come with aching backs. I woke up this morning with some weird crick in my neck just because I'm 46 and apparently that's what happens now, right? Gray hairs, things of that nature. But from a retirement planning standpoint, there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to continuing to age and moving through these critical golden years. So we're going to cover almost 25 years worth of birthdays, right? We're going to take this decade by decade. So let's kick it off with the decade of our 50s. What is the biggest milestone about turning 50 that folks need to know from a retirement planning standpoint?
Yeah, well, I mean, broadly speaking, when we turn 50, prior to that, during our earlier working years, our retirement income picture has very much been an accumulation story, right? Our 20s, 30s, 40s, we're accumulating, we're setting it and forgetting about it. We're contributing to our 401ks, and we have that horizon to maybe take more risk and be able to recover from any downturns in the market as we pursue that growth. Once we hit our 50s, that's when we start to look at a broader picture of what does retirement income look like. Our horizon starts to narrow a bit, and we have to start making that pivot to start transitioning towards an income-centric approach versus a growth at all costs approach, right? And so that's the big picture. And so the 50s are when that transition begins. From a practical perspective, when we turn 50, then that starts to unlock what's called catch-up contributions with our employer accounts or our retirement accounts, where we can contribute more to our 401k, we can contribute more to our IRAs. That reduces maybe some of our taxable income by doing that, but it allows us to start supercharging those accounts more in that decade of the 50s. All right, so, and again, at the bigger picture, this is where it starts to make sense to begin looking at what does it mean to work with an income-first advisor, right? Our strategies are more passive in our early years when we're working and we're accumulating. But then once we start getting into our 50s, approaching 60, that's when we need to start adapting to an income-first mindset where, you know, our approach is always, we want folks that are retired to have predictability, we want them to have certainty, we want to live off of the interest and dividends that our assets generate and not sacrifice principal. And if you're focused solely on growth and you haven't started to make that transition yet, in our final years of retirement or in our first years of being retired, if there's a big downturn in the market, we don't have the time horizon to be able to recover from that. And we don't want to spend our healthiest working years waiting for growth to come back, right? And feeling like we can't draw on our income. We want to front load our retirement years with maximum income so we can enjoy all the things while we're our healthiest and able to do so. And so that's where we want to start looking at what kind of income can our assets generate? What kind of risk is it appropriate for me to be taking? How do I start adapting that? And then, you know, are there strategies to begin optimizing for taxes and fees and making sure that we've taken all that into account? You know, I think we spoke about it in a sense on another segment in a previous episode. You know, when I asked you, Kristen, I said, you know, your family doctor, if they can't treat you, who do they send you to? A specialist, right?
Yep.
But another way to ask that is, your family doctor, do you see a pediatrician?
No, I do not.
Right. Well, why don't we see a pediatrician? Well, a pediatrician was okay when we were a child, right?
Right.
When we were in a
Yep.
different phase of our lives. As we enter these different phases of our working career, just like our healthcare needs change and the need to see a doctor that's more appropriate for our current stage changes, so does the financial advisory side, where we need to start looking at what does an income specialist say about my retirement picture, not
Right.
just solely focus on the growth.
Yeah. And that's a really helpful analogy. And basically, when you hit the big 5-0, congratulations, it's time to transition with a
Yeah.
lot of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
make sure you're working with the right specialist to meet this particular phase of life.
Exactly.
Well, the next big birthday on our list is actually a half birthday. And this is kind of interesting. I know you guys have small kids at home, and often, kids are so excited to celebrate that half birthday,
Yeah.
right? I remember being like, oh, I'm going to be 5.5. Well, we get to a certain age where we stop kind of celebrating the half birthday, but this one is one you definitely want to celebrate, and that's age 59.5. So what do our viewers need to understand about this milestone?
Yeah, that's a big one, Kristen. So with 59.5, the first thing is we could start accessing our retirement accounts without Uncle Sam penalizing us on that, okay? Which is that 10% early withdrawal penalty.
Right.
So that's the first thing with our IRAs and maybe some older 401ks. But another thing that not a lot of people know about is if you're still working and you're contributing and you have a 401k, many companies will allow you to start rolling that money out even if you're still working. That process is called an in-service rollover. And that's really key because we talk about all the time on this show that 401ks are designed to attract and retain younger workers, okay? However, now that I've got access to this money, the 401k may not be designed for those who are in or nearing retirement, okay? And the whole universe of different types of assets are available for us. So things like we can focus on are strategies to reduce fees, maybe some Roth rollout strategies that we've got, improving some tax efficiencies, or even maximizing income. We're really big into making sure you've got enough income for us or for yourselves in retirement. So that's why at that age, we want to start really looking about shifting from the accumulation to steady, predictable income streams that we have. And then we want to reposition that so that it aligns a little bit more with what we have as that withdrawal strategy, right? And so that withdrawal strategy is extremely critical because if you think about it, if you wait until you're already retired before you start thinking about it, it might be too late. Okay, so we want to start taking a look at that as you're starting to hit that retirement red zone, that 5 to 10 years before you're ready to retire. Having these strategies in place are really vital to make sure you're set up the way so that you have long-term success in your retirement years. And so, folks, if you're sitting at home and you didn't know that you maybe have access to your IRAs or 401ks, or you didn't know you could do an in-service rollover, and you want to start taking a look at maybe I'm taking a little bit too much risk and I want to go a little bit more conservative, more preservation, and the funds I have available in my 401ks are just not up to snuff. It's not up to what I want. I'm going to encourage you to pick up the phone, give us a call at the number below, sit down with a team member of ASC Financial Group so that we could start providing you this retirement income analysis that really focuses on those 4 key areas: income planning, risk protection, taxes, and fees. So again, if that's you, give us a call at that number below. We can't wait to hear from you.
Wonderful. Josiah Taylor, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is 844-918-4867. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be diving into the decade of your 60s. There are so many key big birthday milestones that you want to pay attention to, so stay with us to find out what those are right after this.
Our money goes through 3 phases throughout our lives. We accumulate it, we protect it, and then we distribute it.
Most people entering retirement, they're taking way too much risk.
We take a look at where they currently are. In the positions and the accounts that they have, is that enough? Is it generating enough income for them in order to achieve those goals and aspirations?
A successful retirement basically says I am giving permission to spend money.
It's being able to do everything you have in retirement without worrying of, do I have enough money?
You know, it's us focusing on what are the things in retirement that we want to do, that we dream of doing, that we never got to do while we were working.
Being able to spend more time with their grandchildren, be able to travel.
At the end of the day, we don't want a one-size-fits-all for retirement. We dive into, an individual's needs. It's really a forensic approach to income planning.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Josiah and Taylor from ASC Financial Group, and we are so glad that you're hanging out with us today. If you're just tuning in, we are having a very informative and important conversation around the big milestone birthdays. We're actually covering 25 years worth of key birthdays that give you more choice and control over your hard-earned money from a retirement planning perspective. So we've covered the decade of our 50s. It's time now. Congratulations, you've hit age 60. Let's go through these key milestones. And man, this is a game-changing decade for folks from a retirement planning standpoint, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you enter your 60s, you are now squarely in that retirement red zone that we have. That 5 to 10 years is crucial. And if we haven't already started, it's imperative we start going from that accumulation to preservation and distribution that we have. And the reason for that is that margin of error is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Right before we retire, we don't want to hit a 30 to 40% loss in the market from there.
Right.
But Kristen, let's talk about a couple of these ages, okay? Right off the bat, from ages 60 to 63, in 2025 right now, we now can do what's called a supersize 401k catch-up contribution. That means if we're contributing to our 401ks, we can now contribute up to about $34,000
a year.
A year.
Yes.
That really can help narrow that gap if we've been adding money, a little bit later in life. Now we can do this. Or think about this. If your 401k allows it, it's a great time to do a 401k super max Roth that you have and get that government out of our pocket if we can help it.
For sure.
So that's a really key age. And then we start talking about 62. 62 is the earliest time that we can start taking out for Social Security. Keep in mind though, Kristen, that could be up to a 30% penalty if we go earlier.
Yes.
We don't want to make this decision in a vacuum. We need to make sure we're taking a look at what is our health, what's our longevity, and namely if we're going to be keeping working, because now we're set to an income limitation that we have. 65 now starts as Medicare eligibility. And again, a lot of people think, oh, I'm 65, the government gives me free Medicare. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. Okay, Part A is free, but then we have Part B that we have to start accounting for. We've then got potentially Part C, which is Medicare Advantage plans or Medigap coverage, because traditional Medicare A and B only covers about 80% of those expenses, and then some drug plans, okay?
Right.
So a whole host of things we really need to start taking a look at. The bottom line is when you are in your 60s, a lot of things start to converge here right around 65, okay?
Yep.
We start having income streams that are starting to come together. We have to start taking a look at all of our investments that we have. We want to start taking a look at these choices that we have, because that really is going to influence what the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of your retirement is going to look like.
Yeah, and like you said, you can't afford to look at any one of these key milestones or what is associated with it in a vacuum, because how you make a decision in one area can and will affect all the others. That's true with Social Security. It's true with Medicare. And, Part A is free for a lot of people. It's not free for everybody, though, right? And there's a 2-year look back with Medicare. So the decisions you make at age 63 are going to determine how much you start paying for your Medicare at age 65 and so on and so forth. So again, we're not getting too much into the weeds on this show, but the point is, to your image of everything converging, this has to be coordinated and planned for. Next big milestone in our 60s is known as your full retirement age. Taylor, explain to our viewers what that is.
Yeah, so both Josiah and I have a passion for all things Social Security because we're both certified national Social Security advisors, meaning we've gone through an additional level of training if Social Security Administration, they're great for answering factual questions about your benefit, but they're not going to advise and strategize about how best to optimize.
Right, because they're not allowed. They can give you information, but they're not allowed to give you personalized
order
advice.
takers in that sense is what we say, right?
Right, yeah.
And so both of us, we advise folks on how best to optimize their Social Security, because there's a lot of generic one-size-fits-all advice out there. Oh, you turn 62, take your Social Security. You turn, always delay to 70. And everybody goes, well, geez, where do I fall in that picture? And so we very much focus on a concept of situational Social Security. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone should take into account, there's about over 24 factors that we need to look at before we lock in that Social Security benefit. Because doing a do-over is not as, it's much more restrictive now than it once was if we take Social Security at the wrong time.
Right, and even though it was available, I mean, what a pain, right? You only get one do-over, it has to be within the first 12 months.
You got to pay back the benefit that you got. All those things. So, that was a long-winded reply to what's important about full retirement age. Well, that means that for most folks now at 67, some would be 66 and change. That's the age at which you're entitled to 100% of your Social Security benefit. And if you delay beyond that, that's where you get that 8% simple interest bump up in your delayed retirement credits for Social Security each year. And so, sure, some folks take it at 62, and that may be appropriate for where they're at in their retirement income picture. Others, say, I really want to get to my full retirement age so I can realize 100% of my benefit. And so for us as advisors, we're really doing that intentional, really a cash flow analysis with folks to say, what do we need to be bringing in on a monthly and annual basis to help meet our regular, our routine needs? Or what are the paychecks, so to speak, that we need to hit? Using that source of guaranteed income from Social Security. So, again, once you file, your benefit is somewhat permanent now, with those narrow guidelines for a do-over, but that doesn't work for most people. And we want to make sure that we're optimizing Social Security as part of one's whole income picture.
Yes.
We had a couple that came in to see us from Reading. They both thought, oh, we should both file at 62. That's what we've been told. And we see that a lot in certain industries like teachers. If you're eligible for your full pension at 62, take your pension, take your Social Security, and have a nice life. It may not be the appropriate response or appropriate strategy for everyone. But what we were able to show was that when we talk about a couple, optimizing and coordinating those benefits together is important.
Yes.
And so for them, they didn't need all that income right up front. And so it made sense. We showed, well, okay, if one of you takes the benefit at 62, the lower benefit at 62, you can allow the other one to compound to as old as 70, and then have that maximum benefit. And why would we want to do that? One of the biggest reasons is that we look at big time is survivorship income. Right? Because a lot of folks think, oh, take it at 62. Well, that's okay if we're living in today. But if we're looking 15, 20, 25 years into the future, eventually one spouse is going to pass. You will lose the lower of the Social Security benefits.
Right.
And you will retain the higher one that's left.
Yep.
And so if you both take it at 62 and you both take that 30% whack in your benefit, it may not be the best long-term decision, and that's why we need to look at all of the criteria for someone in terms of what's best for them.
Right. That's why, there's no substitute for sitting down in the financial planning environment and looking at all these different pieces. And I know as part of your retirement income analysis, you will run that Social Security optimization report, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So we talk a lot about a retirement income analysis, and as part of that process, we run a Social Security analysis to show what is the best time to file for you so that you have an idea of the goalposts to operate within. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but it shows you your options. So we'd encourage you, if you'd like that income analysis, you'd like that Social Security analysis, you want to know, how does this all fit together for me? As I approach that full retirement age of 67, reach out to us, call the number on the screen below, scan the QR code. It's no obligation, absolutely no charge to you. It is just a helpful set of tools for you to use as you continue to make decisions into your 60s.
Wonderful. Taylor, Josiah, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, we encourage you to reach out. Again, we know we're covering a lot of different topics and a lot of different ground today. And this might be new to you. It might feel overwhelming, but guess what? It's not new to the team of ASC Financial Group. They've got your back and they would love to walk through this process for you. But you need to reach out. And that number to call to claim your complimentary retirement income analysis is 844-918-4867. Or again, if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, we're going to continue this important discussion around big milestone birthdays for your retirement planning. Stay with us.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work, where today we are working our way through 25 years of key milestone birthdays and what they can mean for your retirement planning. We've been through the decade of your 50s. We've been through the decade of your 60s. Congratulations, you are now 70 years old, and guess what? With the decade of your 70s comes some new things to navigate, some new opportunities, and some new obligations that need to be planned for. So let's kick it off with the big 70. What do folks need to know about turning 70?
Well, first of all, when you reach 70, there is no need to delay your Social Security any longer. If you have not yet taken it, it makes absolutely no sense not to take it once you hit 70. You're not, and Social Security is not going to come knocking on your door telling you to file. You don't get any more delayed retirement credits. Your benefit doesn't grow anymore by waiting. If you are blessed enough in your situation to be able to wait until 70 to file for Social Security, that means that you now have 124% of the benefit that you would have gotten at age 67 if that's your full retirement age. So certainly file for Social Security, take that delayed benefit if you haven't yet done it. So that's number one, once we turn 70. Now, as we look into our 70s, there's a very important date that a lot of folks that we meet with, they've heard it referenced, they don't necessarily know all the implications, and that's the age of your RMD, which is currently 73 years old. Stands for Required Minimum Distribution, meaning whether you need the income or not, whether you've been drawing income from your retirement accounts or not. If you have a 401k, an IRA, traditional IRA, 403b, the government now says you must start pulling money out of those accounts at a minimum amount, and it's going to escalate every year from there. We've delayed your tax long enough, we've deferred your tax long enough, you now must take that money out. And so that's why it's so important to start working with an income first advisor to be able to advise on how best to account for those RMDs, because they can have unintended consequences if we're not careful.
Yes.
It can bump us into new income brackets. It can trigger higher Medicare premiums. It can subject more of our Social Security benefit to taxation. There's a lot of things that we need to look at in planning for that RMD age. And if we're not careful, and we're oriented in such a way in our retirement portfolios where we're not getting enough of a return as we're pulling out those RMDs on an escalating basis, if we're not having enough return to replace that, it can draw down the balances in our accounts prematurely. So that's why we want to maximize income, maximize interest and dividends, the renewable parts of our retirement income, so that we're getting that return that replaces what we're taking out on a regular basis.
Right. And I know the current RMD age is 73, but for folks who were born after 1960 or later, your RMD age will be 75. And stay tuned, because we know the rules just are constantly changing.
And they
right?
will keep changing too.
They
so.
will. Well, Josiah, I would love for you to wrap all this up. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground today, and you guys have done such a great job of walking us through in chronological order what these big milestone birthdays can mean. But how do you go about helping folks build that comprehensive, holistic, cohesive strategy where you are looking at all these different pieces and how they fit together?
Yeah, Kristen, we talk about here retirement decisions don't happen in isolation. So everything from our Social Security to taxes to RMDs to our healthcare, they all tie together and they all affect each other, okay? And that's why it's so vital that we use our retirement income analysis to see how they all coordinate together from here. And so our analysis is going to look at a couple things. How much income are we generating, and is it sustainable? What do I mean by that? Maybe I've got a couple of short-term CDs that are paying me 4 to 5%. That's great. I don't have market exposure. I'm getting a good interest. But is that sustainable, Taylor? No. You know, maybe it's going to be okay for 2-3 years, but for 15, 20 years, I can't count on that. And then we take a look at risk, okay? You know, if the market drops down 30%, okay, and I'm taking income out of this asset that we have, now I have a risk that's called sequence risk, okay? As I'm drawing that money out and the market goes down, I now have to make that up. And it's one of the most devastating risks a retiree is going to face. It's a risk multiplier, whether it's sequence risk, market risk, inflation risk, systemic risk, all of those risks are maximized by sequence risk that we have. And then we take a look at here of what our tax exposure is going to be, okay, specifically in the area once we start generating these RMDs. Is that going to throw us into a higher tax environment or tax bracket? Am I going to have a higher Medicare premium that I'm going to have to start looking at? That's why it's going to be so vital to make sure we take a look at this retirement income analysis, because the more time that somebody has to make adjustments, they get to reap longer term benefits down the road. And so, folks, this has been a great show. We've kind of wrapped everything up here of all these milestones and these ages. And so whether you're in your mid-50s, your early 60s, mid-60s, or in your 70s here, there's a lot of planning that we can take a look at. There's a lot of adjustments, corrections that most of us are going to be able to face, because our goal is to make sure that you have the retirement of your dreams and that you're able to retire on your terms and take account for all of these birthdays and milestones that our retirement faces.
Wonderful. Josiah Taylor, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. And we look forward to being back with you next time here on Wealth After Work.